Hey everyone, it is Lisa Bongean from Primitive Gatherings, and today I have the honor of going through our blue and white quilt show. So we have 105 quilts, so make sure you're properly prepared for a long show. So I will be going through and talking a little bit about each quilt that I see. Some I will know a lot about, some I won't know so much about, but I have this wonderful guide here that lets me know who made what quilt, if they won an award, who quilted the quilt, and all that fun stuff. So let's get started. All right, so I'm going to let Kaylee do a little pan of the whole room here first, and then we'll start off in the corner over here to my right, but I'll just give you a kind of an idea of the overall feeling you get when you walk in the door here. It is so beautiful. The blue and white is just so crisp and clean and refreshing. And many people have said that they just love this room filled with the blue and white. All right, so we're going to come up over here in the corner here, and we have quilt number 100, and that is Tammy Wiseman from Smyrna, Tennessee. A is for Apple is the name of the pattern, and it is quilted by Tammy herself. And it says she made an original size in red, and it was the designer's choice, but blue is her favorite color, and I wanted to hang on my wall, so I made it half the size of the original. Okay, and then we have quilt number 11, and I recognize this because it is one of our employees, and this is Adrienne Landgraves, and she is from Grand Chute, Wisconsin. This is called Antique Christmas Past is the name of the quilt. It was one of our designs for one of our primitive Christmas at one time, and her description says, my favorite quilt design of Lisa Bongean's is Antique Christmas Past, so I chose to create it in blue and white and named it Blue Christmas in honor of my mom, who loved the holiday, and Elvis Presley. I'm a big fan as well, Adrienne, so I like your mom. All right, so we're going to slowly come over here by the door, and welcoming everybody as they come in is quilt number 77. Quilt number 77 is Stellar Nursery, and it is from our Starlight Gatherings books here at Primitive Gatherings. And this says, it is Julie, oh man, I'm going to murder this, sorry Julie, Idzarek from St. Louis Park, Minnesota. And she says, one of my favorite quilt designs is a blue and white quilt made with traditional 1800s quilt block. Lisa Starlight Gatherings fabric line and accompanying quilt design were a perfect combination for making this quilt to enter in the annual Christmas event and show. All right. And then over here high, we have number 16. And this is also a gorgeous quilt. And just so you know, there's so many quilts in this show that were just over the top beautiful, and we just, can't give out a prize for everyone. Sad, right? But to me, a prize is just being hung for everybody to enjoy. Now this is called Royal Sapphire Medallion, and is from Yolanda Zoe Takahashi from Daggett, Michigan. And it is quilted by her as well, and it says her inspiration came from a coloring book where she imagined the intricate designs could be used as a model for an applique pattern. And this is she said she came across some lovely antique brooches, and this reminded her of that. So thank you, Zoe, for entering this. It's a beautiful, beautiful quilt. Lots of hand stitching on that, lots of bling. All right, and then number 75 we have here, this one is Love is Blue by Barbara Faber from Rhinelander, Wisconsin. Barb is one of our people you see often on the lives with me. She does a lot of our events here, and it is called Love is Blue, and it's an original design based off a kitchen towel that she had. So the pattern is from Lisa Bongean's American Tribute. That's the outside blocks. And she says she took a trip to North Shore of Minnesota and had time to look at all the birch trees along Lake Superior. So that was her inspiration for that. Number 67 is called Turtle Gathering from Patricia Pollock from Greenville, Wisconsin. It is from a pattern called Herd of Turtles. I love turtles and Hawaiian quilting. Needle turn applique, so choosing this design was a no-brainer. Made from my stash, this project was a ton of fun to do. Now, to name the turtles attending this gathering. We love this quilt. It is so beautifully done as well. Okay, 54. 54. Okay, I don't know what this font is. What is that? What does that say?
I have no
It's a Scandinavian design, so I don't know what that is. Is that an L or a? Yeah, something tackle or take. Anyway, this is from Jewel from Scandinavia. It's called Jewel I from Scandinavia. Marina S. Abad from Sugarland, Texas. Sorry, Marina, I butchered the name of this quilt. With my love of Scandinavian design, blue and white favorite Christmas colors, and inspired by Jewel I Scandinavia wall quilt, Simply Modern, number 11 by Sherry Noel of Rebecca May Designs. So beautiful quilt, all it looks like wool applique from here. I can't quite tell, but I'm thinking that's what it is. Okay, then number 42, a beautiful quilt design here, all over. All right, 42. This is Luann Roberts from Cheyenne, Wyoming. It's called Prairie Queen, and it was quilted by Eva Robinson. So she says that she liked the name of this quilt called Prairie Queen. It's a simple 9-patch and half square triangle, 4-patch and a square. So very simple, she says. And even though blue is not a favorite color of mine, I really enjoyed the creative process of making this quilt. Well, Luann, we love your quilt, so I'm glad you entered it into our show. And then over here, this is a lovely one also. Nice, lots of patchwork, not too difficult, but still stunning. So, Randy Rails 9-patch from Yolanda Carmona from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 9-patch in rails is the name of the quilt pattern, and it is quilted by Yolanda herself. 30 years ago, I made a navy and white quilt for my friend Randy Walther. Randy lived in New Jersey City. I used a 9-patch and rails from Quick and Easy Quilt Scrap Quilts, 1995. I love the navy fabric and have a large staff. It was the perfect quilt for me to remake, and the graphic design for this used shark border print. It adds whimsy. I have used this quilt pattern to make more than 10 quilts. It's always nice to have a beautiful go-to pattern. Here's the shark she's talking about right there. Cool way to use that. All right, so now we're gonna go up high. We have so many spots here at the gathering to fill quilts. I just wish they were all evenly lighted, but this one we thought would show really well up high with the bright, all different color blues. This is from Paula Walters from Rolla, Missouri. Dresden Dish Garden Quilt is the name of the pattern, and it is quilted by Paula herself. I chose to make the Dresden Dish Garden Quilt by Kim Deal because this small quilt includes several things I love about quilts: a traditional Dresden plate, applique, and scrappiness. Thank you so much, Paula, for your addition. And then over, oh, we might as well just, here, we're gonna pull this out here. It just got pushed in. We're kind of at the end of the season here now. We just had our Naughty and Nice retreat, so some things got moved around for that. But 28 is, I love this book. This really helps me a lot. 28 is Staycation by Kelly Cushman from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And the pattern is called Staycation. Welcome to Woodbury Way, quilted by Kelly herself. I'm excited for my first quilt show. I've been quilting for about 5 years and loving every part of it. I like this quilt because it's traditional and modern at the same time. Lisa's fabrics look great. Hopefully this quilt show will help my confidence in doing other things. Yes, Kelly, keep going because this is awesome. Great job. We love it. And welcome to the quilting world. It's so much fun. You don't know what you got yourself into, right? When you first start this. We're a good kind of crazy here. All right, then let's go on the other side here. This one is fabulous as well. 53 is All Things Blue and Beautiful by Carol Wilson from Longmont, California. The pattern is Austin Bluebird, and it was quilted by Mary Klein. Primitive Gatherings Blue and White Quilt Show afforded me a wonderful opportunity to design a quilt I had been thinking about for a long time. Since I am a longtime admirer of medallion quilts and blue fabrics, I decided to combine both those elements into this quilt. Look at the beautiful quilting. Good job, Mary. Mary is a local shop owner here in our area as well, and she owns a shop called Going to Pieces in Appleton. Okay, then up high we have number 95, and I know whose this is. This is Galaxy of Stars by Pooja Garg from Wynwood, Pennsylvania, and a pattern called Galaxy of Stars, quilted by Debbie Weindorf. The geometry of the 60-degree shapes came together perfectly as I was making this quilt to highlight the fabric while at the same time creating a 3D effect, reminding me of the endlessness of the cosmos. Beautiful quilt. I could see this as a tree skirt, a table topper. Beautiful. We'll have to ask Pooja if this is one of her original designs or not, but it's fabulous. Okay, Broken Star by Vicki Lightzow from Manitowoc, Michigan. And again, I apologize in advance for, you know, all these names that I might just kind of murder a little bit, but I'm doing my best. It is a broken star log cabin, a very traditional design. Look at how beautiful it is. Quilted by Vicki herself. This quilt was inspired by a group of girls going to a retreat with a theme about log cabin quilts. I wanted a spray starch to use small pieces, so I used 1-inch cuts of fabric. I wanted to thank Lisa for inspiring me to sew with small pieces. This quilt was made and quilted by me. Great job, Vicki. Okay, then we're going to go down here and do these two here on the side. Number 12. Another beautiful, beautiful quilt. The quilting just accentuates it so much here. Stars and Strips by Gloria Farvor from Germantown, Wisconsin. The pattern is called Pure Joy Design Stars and Strips, quilted by Laura Migliaccio. Again, apologize. This is my third year of entering the show and my fourth year quilting. This is my favorite quilt. I had special quilting or custom quilting done on it, and I am so in love with the outcome. And I am so in love with what the long arm did to my quilt. Yes, the long arm added magic. I knew that right away, Gloria. Okay, so do we want to go in and around this way? All right, let's go this way here. We have a beautiful log cabin here. This is number 89. All right. Hearth and Home, Jody Richards from Keswick, Virginia, and it's quilted by Jody herself. It's got the timeless Baptist fan on there. This quilt represents the entirety of my quilting journey so far. The fabrics have been collected from all over the U.S. over the last 30 years. I made this quilt for my bed. The log cabin is one of my favorite quilt blocks and truly love how this one turned out. Yes, it is beautiful for sure. All right, this one here is spectacular. All right, number 38. I know whose this is, but I'm going to make sure just in case my memory fails me. But yes, Blue and White Checkered, Colleen Foley from Richland, Michigan, and quilted by Sue Hiddle. My love of small pieces and blue and white quilts came together when I saw Maggie's quilt in her book Buttonwood Farm. This quilt is a combination of numerous blue fabrics and one Marcus aged muslin. The finish size and my construction method varied from Maggie's, but the inspiration was truly from her quilt. All right, Colleen, that is amazing. And then over here we have our first quilt that has won an award. Okay, now this is number, yep, here it is. This is called Headed Home. And the pattern is called Northwest, and it's quilting by Elvira Illig. I had another pattern picked out, fabric ordered, block laid out in EQ8 when this pattern showed up in my Instagram feed. I had to make this pattern. My thoughts instantly headed home. It reminded me of growing up in Minnesota, our winters, my Norwegian roots, and especially my paternal grandparents. I am thankful my partner was raised by a quilter. He understands what it is to have a quilt speak to you, resulting in the self-inflicted time crunch, and cheered me on while I spent much September mumbling about bias. The Yeti backing was his design choice. Okay, since she mentioned the backing, let's show it. All right, let's just move this out of the way. Ooh, look at the Yetis. Oh, and it's flannel, super cute. Yes, and both of them came to see her quilt in the show. So thank you, Colleen, for this wonderful quilt. Everybody here in the dining room enjoys it. 21 is another original design and from Kristen Trader from Suring, Wisconsin, and it is quilted by Lori Kreschbach. Blue and white made me think of winter and snow. I kept imagining a swirl of dark to light blues radiating out. I had never, quote unquote, designed a quilt before. I played with graph paper, tweaked my vision, and inspiration came from previous quilt shows and the Naughty and Nice retreat at PG. So she gives a little bit more description, but look at how beautiful that turned out. Congratulations, Kristen, on your first designer. It was beautiful. I love the wool applique in there, and the quilting just enhances it even more. This will be a great treasure for you. Okay, let's see, number 44. We are in the hallway here. 44. This is a Crabapple Hill design, if my memory holds me. Okay, Winter Wonderland by Barb Bohus from Oak Lawn, Illinois. Winter Wonderland and Over the River and Through the Woods, quilted by Barb herself. Years ago, I saw a quilt on Pinterest using the layout and knew it was something I wanted to make. I drafted the layout, bought fabric, adjusted the embroidery patterns from Crabapple Hill Studio, and stuck it in my stash. When Lisa announced the blue and white quilt show, I knew it was time to dig it out and get started. I underestimated the amount of time it would take to complete this quilt, and I'm so happy I was able to finish it in time for the quilt show. It is my favorite quilt I've made. Yes, Barb, it is beautiful. Thank you for submitting this in. It is truly awesome. And then we have over here, number 93, beautiful 93 here. All right. Swooning with Joy from Lori Clark, Warren, Michigan. The pattern is Swoon. Cindy Chalice quilted this as well. Blue is my favorite color, so of course I needed to participate in the Primitive Gatherings 2024 Blue and White Quilt Show. I found the blue and white batik at the local quilt shop and loved it as my focal fabric, sorry. I need new glasses. Oh, the two blue fabrics and white swoon pattern, the two blue fabrics and white background were already in my stash. I always loved and wanted to make the swoon pattern. I chose the name as Swooning with Joy because my interpretation of that saying is to encounter something so wonderful it makes you dizzy with joy. That's how making quilts feels to me. Hey, that is awesome. That is a great quote to keep you inspired and going because yes, somehow quilting just fills our life with lots of joy, from friendships to just the mere fact of pushing things through your machine or hand stitching them. This is number 80, Missouri Puzzle, Patricia Cornell from Washington Island, Wisconsin, and it is Missouri Puzzle Quilt. And I saw the pattern, I liked it, and I made it. So Patricia is very short and to the point. Beautiful half square triangles, 9 patches, and yeah, half square triangles, not square and square. Beautiful, but see how lovely and easy quilt design can still be fabulous, right? Who doesn't love this? I love this. It's great. 2 fabrics, that's it. Simple, but awesome. All right, coming back out here. Next up, number 87, Blue Serenity by Shirley Gerdes, Waukesha, Wisconsin, and it was quilted by Shirley as well. I decided to make a blue and white quilt when I found out my girlfriend since high school was having her 50th anniversary. Her favorite color is blue. I had a good collection of blue fabric, so I started making sampler blocks. And then I found out Primitive Gatherings was having a blue and white quilt show, so I entered. Thank you so much, Shirley, for entering your quilt. It is truly beautiful. Your friend is going to love it. All right, number 84. Look at this beauty, right? I just want to hang out here all day. All My Exes Are Blue by Annie Bardis, Port St. Lucie, Florida. And the pattern is unknown because it's an antique quilt. It's a reproduction of the antique quilt. My friend Doug Lico has a quilt like this, only in red and white. The pattern is a unique red and white quilt I saw on social media. Here we go. It was described as having 3/4 inch finished red squares and measured 108 by 108. That was too big, so I drew the pattern on graph paper, made several test blocks. 1/2 inch finished red squares gave me the size of a wall quilt I wanted. After I made a red and white one, I decided to make it in blue and white. I don't know anything about the origin of the design nor the name of the design. Maybe someone will recognize it. And for her efforts, we have given her the best workmanship because there's not a cutoff point or a missed anything on this quilt. It is just so fabulously done. And I love how she just, who quilted this? Annie herself quilted it. She just quilted in white. She didn't touch the blue at all. I love that she didn't try to go over the blue squares with the white thread. So Annie, great job, and I hope you enjoy your best workmanship ribbon. It is so well deserved. It's really nice when we can get up nice and close to them, right? But the overall effect of this show is just so amazing when you can come and see quilts everywhere. Okay, number 63, Nordic Frost, beautiful name, awesome design, quilted by Janice Young. It is Sherry Lungberg from Pentwater, Michigan. Idea began at the Christmas in July 2024 Naughty and Nice event. Lisa mentioned the quilt show colors would be blue and white, and they are my favorite. So she just goes on to say she's never entered a quilt show, and this one, it consists of double flying geese, mini square and a square, and the binding was a joy to do, and it looks like she did that by hand. And she says that I encourage all who hesitate to jump in with gratitude. All right, and then number 4, way in the front of the book here, open her up. Number 4, Oh My Stars by Leslie Neighbor from Janesville, Wisconsin. And this pattern was featured in a 2024 Classic Club Quilt held monthly with Sassy Farm Chicks Quilt Company in Oxford, Wisconsin. Beautiful quilt. So some of them made it in red and white, blue and white, yellow and white. And she chose the Baptist fan quilting design to add classic, because it's a classic design. Let's see, I can't read the whole thing, it's too much, but she said it was such an honor to see her quilt hung at the gathering and plan to participate with more quilts in the future. Awesome. We love it, Leslie. I had so much fun with you when you were here last. So glad that you got to come see your quilt as well. All right, this one is fun. Share Your Stitched Up Blues by Rachel Pavzi from Brooklyn, New York. Pattern is Grandmother's Flower Garden, quilted by Carrie Hauser. All right, my mom taught me English paper piecing technique. I slowly started making one flower and then another. Eventually it started to take shape. One day the large patchwork was sitting on a chair below a skylight in the old brownstone where I lived. A harsh rain pounded down and the skylight leaked rusty water onto my maturing quilt. While trying to clean the rust out of the white fabrics, the blues began to run. My mom was my hero, championing me on helping me with ripping out particularly bad hexagons. The quilt was finally finished November of 22. So she has a little story about it. Sometimes those things happen while we're making things. I just had to take some stuff out of my Countdown to Christmas quilt because I've been carrying it around forever trying to get it done, and it got a little dirty. So I had to take the hydrogen peroxide to it. All right, number 58, it is a twin. So do you see how we displayed these two? All right. Oh My Stars, again. She belongs to the classic quilters as well. This is Rhonda Streich, and she chose to make it in blue and white. And it says it is the first quilt to be made by a group members. This quilt from the book Red and White 2 was chosen as a first quilt to be made by group members. So she must have made this with some other people. Isn't it? Everybody made their own, I think, is what from the first one that we talked about from Leslie's quilt. All right, look at this beautiful one here. I'm going to just sit right down here and talk about these two quilts and hang out with them for a while. Quilt number 20. Fun fabrics in this one. One more. All right, here we go. I'm like, where's 20? Something happened here, people. Okay, Shades of Blue Shenanigans. Yes, it is some shenanigans going on here for sure. From Janet Damask from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the pattern is called Shenanigans, and it was quilted by Diane Minkley. When I heard the Blue and White Quilt Show requirement was for 2024, I remembered a blue and white kit that I still had on my shelf. However, it used very traditional block. I found Modern Quilt Pattern in American Quilter magazine surprisingly required the same amount of fabrics that were in the traditional kit. Though this is not typically what I gravitate toward, the quilt is being made for my son. He made the choice for the more modern pattern. So my kit fabrics took an unexpected fresh look. Yes, that is beautiful, Janet. Great job. Number 73 is up next. Starlight Seas by Rachel Garner from Poplar Bluff, Missouri. The pattern is called Starlight Seas, and Rachel quilted it herself. I watched the Red, Green, and Cream Quilt Show on Primitive Gatherings YouTube channel and thought, that's pretty cool. Maybe I can enter. I already had a fat quarter bundle of yardage of Starlight Gatherings, so I just needed to decide on a pattern. I decided to use my AccuQuilt Storm at Sea die cut to make the Storm at Sea quilt. This quilting pattern is called Sea Swirls by Marcy Gore of Lily Street Quilts. Very good. Beautiful, scrappy quilt. Can't go wrong with that, Rachel. Great job. Number 43. Look at this beautiful blue fabric called Winter Break, and it is by Mary Devlin. She also quilted it. She is from Denton, Texas. Winter Break is an original quilt design using AccuQuilt Schoolhouse die cut to depict a peaceful break from a busy school year. She loves schoolhouses, and they are resting quietly amongst the pine trees with a light snowfalls. Look at that. She put, I don't think those are little, those are fabric, little snowflakes. I love how she quietly just stitched those on there. They are beautiful. And it is quilted on my Moxie with swirls. Merry Christmas, everyone, she says. Merry Christmas, Merry as well. Thank you for entering your quilt. Now this is another kind of cool, original design. I love all the hand stitching in the blocks. Kaylee can get up as close as possible to this to maybe see that those are hand stitched. Secret Stars by Pamela Tuhill from Leroy, Illinois. And I saw this pattern in the August issue of American Patchwork and Quilting magazine. I made the quilt using Lisa Bongean's Snowman Gathering line from Moda. After making the quilt top, I felt like it was missing something. So those white blocks looked empty. I decided to try something and place snowflakes in those white blocks using Valdani variegated thread. Great choice, Pamela. That added so much to your quilt. All right, 94. I recognize these fabrics. They're so beautiful. It's another overall design. And I'm sorry that we can't hang every quilt out, full out, but they are all still beautiful. Just, you can kind of get a good idea of what it looks like. This is called Crisscross Star Block, and she named it A Starry Snowrific Night. Stephanie Mendez from Hillmar, California. A Starry Snowrific Night was created especially for the Blue and White Quilt Show at Primitive Gatherings. I started with a jelly roll and then added some yardage of the cream background stars inspired by Lori Holt's crisscross star block. Beautifully done. All right, this one is nice too. All right, who doesn't love scrappy blue? I mean, you just want to spend a lot of time here just looking at every quilt. This one is called Three Cats. One of my favorite quilt patterns is a 9-patch. Mine too, I love 9 patches. This quilt is named for the indigo fabric, Three Cats Sheshui. I can't ever say the shui or something like that. I can't remember, but it's a form of fabric that is made in South Africa. This quilt was machine pieced and machine quilted, and after washing it, she said she started at 108 inches, and after washing it, it went to 98, so she lost almost 10 inches. Cool. So it just shrinks right up and becomes soft and lovely. All right, let's go up high here. I just want to make sure I didn't forget those up over there, and I did not. This is, I recognize this one here. It is from one of my books. This is from David. I didn't know this. Okay, David Boggs from Paducah, Kentucky, called Starling, and this is one of my favorite color fabrics of indigo. I've been collecting indigo for some time now and was waiting for the right pattern. Starling seemed to be a perfect fit. So this was from one of our books, but it was done in red and white. So David, this was a great vision to see that in blue and white. Let's just go up here to 64 as long as we're up high. Oh My Stars. I've always loved, wait a minute. Oh yeah. I've always loved barn quilts, and blue and white quilts and are my favorites. I have found this quilt, Barn Quilt by Wendy Shepard, in the Quilters World Classic Blocks Revisited late autumn issue of 2023. I immediately knew I could use all my blue and white fabrics from my stash to make it my own. I enjoyed the random placement of the houses and roofs, and the background made me think of the stars peeking out through the clouds of a night star. I love it too. I love how it's not just, 25 blocks. I love how there's missing ones and they're off quilted just like neighborhoods are. They're not always perfect. 96 is another beautiful, the quilting on this is just very delicate and very snowflake-ish. And this one is called Snow Flurries by Lynn Lahr from Waverly, Iowa. Pattern is called Jack Frost, and it is quilted by Julie Messerly, known as the Quilting Bug. Snow Flurries will soon be coming to Iowa. Yes, they are here today in Wisconsin as well. I'll have Kaylee poke out. It is snowing right now. This is called a pattern from Miss Rosie's called Jack Frost. And she made the blocks a little bigger and added more on the flying geese border. Beautiful, beautiful, Lynn. Great quilt. Number 66, I love the snail's trail here. Sea Spray from Jeanette Huddapole from Geneva, Illinois. It's called Sunset at Sea. The inspiration for this quilt was Lake Superior and the awesome waves that characterize the Great Lake. I grew up in Wisconsin, and the Great Lakes of Superior and Michigan were part of my childhood. And she said the majority of it was done with paper piecing, which was a new technique for her, and the monkey wrench pattern creates an illusion of curved piecing, rolling waves, and sea spray. I didn't know that was a monkey wrench. I thought that was a snail's trail. But a lot of blocks have multiple names to them. And that's what makes it fun, trying to figure it out, right? Because, oh, I didn't do 46. Thank you, Kaylee. All right, Red Hot Faith. Nancy Heinrich from Jenison, that was a J, Jenison, Michigan. We couldn't figure it out. It was from the Two Color Quilts book from Martingale. In 2020, I was in the Bible block of the month. I was supposed to be red and white quilt, but I chose to make mine blue and white. So the quilt took me 3 years to finish because life gets in the way. The name is Union Squares, but it was very much updated and changed to Living Thread Ministries. Permission was granted by the publisher. So that's who quilted this, and it was from the book in Martingale, from Martingale. She doesn't say, oh, Two Color Quilts. So I don't know, I think it was either blue, I think we did blue and white and red and white. So All right, moving on. Number 41 is, oh no, Chinosauri Stars by Emmanuel Yakum from Carrollton, Texas, quilted by Matt Randall. Our guild did a block of the months inspired by Triangle Gatherings. It was 9 blocks and I wasn't liking how they turned out themselves, so I added 7 more blocks from her book and purchased and turned them into Sawtooth Stars on point. So what they're saying is these are the Triangle Gatherings all in here. So he added the star points and kept going. All right. The idea came to me when a friend told me that a quilt had been made for him from Lakeside Gatherings, caught his mother's eye because she loved blue. Okay, moving on to 85. 85 is a big log cabin. Snowflakes falling, the cabin is calling. All right, so this is kind of, it's a basic. She doesn't really know. She says she got, image searches off the internet. My first quilt retreat was Quilt in a Day log cabin. I've been making versions of the log cabin block ever since. I love that when people just keep making the same ones. They just feel comfortable and they just want to keep doing that. And hey, that's totally fine. I remember Sherry from A Quilting Life said she made 15 quilts out of the first star pattern that she ever made. So some people just like doing that. My quilt is a nod to winter and all the outdoor fun that goes with snowfall, and it brings us a lot of fun. So that was 85, and that was Kathy Burgett from Two Rivers, Wisconsin, and Kathy quilted it also. Number 3, my amazing quilt. I love it. Rita Harris from Waukesha, Wisconsin. Pattern is Dimensional Quilt. Rita quilted it as well. I found the image of this quilt on Pinterest. There was no designer information or pattern offered, but I love a challenge. It is all half square triangles. It was perfect quilt to try out my AccuQuilt Go and gifted to me by a friend. So it's just all half square triangles. So it's just a matter of how she turned them, right? Or no, it's a half square triangle. Yeah, see all the half square triangles? Well, some 3/4 triangles here. 1, 2, 3. All right. Number 48, Garden Maze by Lorraine Conroy from Kintersville, Pennsylvania. Pattern is called Garden Maze. Lorraine quilted it as well. I purchased this blue and white toile fabric and fell in love. Then found this pattern and thought the two belong together. Thank you, Lisa, for the opportunity to share my quilt and allowing so many talented people to share their quilts as well. What fun. Great job, Lorraine. I love your use of that as sashing. It really makes that contrast work very well. All right, number 33. This is a nice, beautiful quilt as well. We love the design on this one. 9 stars, Susan Carr from Huntington Beach, California. Pattern is called did I say 9 stars? 9 Sisters, I'm sorry. And is quilted by Susan herself. I made this quilt in honor of Daniela Stout of Cozy Quilt Designs based in San Diego County, California. She passed this August 2024 after fighting 4 years of cervical cancer. And then she just goes on to explain that she, was part of a Jelly Roll strip club. So this is beautiful in honor of your friend Susan. Thank you for sharing 9 Sisters with us. All right then, look at this beauty. She got a double ribbon winner here. So we weren't wrong in giving this a judge's choice as one of the best quilts here that you can't stop thinking about. So when we do this, I'll explain to that and Kaylee, can you remind me to explain how this kind of goes and how we do the best we can to pick the best quilts in here that we think need some recognition. 71 is Winter Joy by Debbie Chappell from Shepherd, Montana. And the name of the pattern is called Winter Joy, and Debbie quilted it as well. I purchased this pattern years ago with the intent of making it right away. Fast forward almost a decade and it's finally done. I started sewing it during the stay at Primitive Gatherings in April during a snowstorm. It was aptly named Winter Joy for the love of winter and snow. It has become first circle in beginning to end at the gathering to now hang in the blue and white quilt show. Merry Christmas from Montana. May you all experience winter joy this season. So this also got viewers' choice. So there's just something stunning about this, you know, beautiful overall quilt, and then this lovely snowflakes added to it with a total contrasting color. Just made it stick out, and it's different, and that's what people look for. Judges look for something different. So great job, Debbie. You did wonderful, and it earned you 2 ribbons, the only quilt in the show that got 2 ribbons. All right, look at this beauty. It is so yummy. 72, History Repeated. Carolyn Sands from Frisco, Texas. The pattern is History Repeated, and it was quilted by Maggie Honeyman. She is one of my friends. I love Maggie. She does an awesome job. I fell in love with this quilt in 2009. It just illustrates my love for small piecing. Every 14-inch finished block has 208 pieces. I love this complex block containing triple flying geese units. I think it makes the quilt so interesting. So triple geese. So see 3? I have an antique quilt like this, and Kaylee uses it all the time for backdrops, and it is green and red and then cream, so it's so beautiful. This quilt got a first place in its category, so great job, Carolyn. We thank you so much for sending that beautiful quilt for all of us to enjoy here. It definitely was a stop in your tracks kind of quilt. And then 23, look at this beauty. I just love this as well. Breaks my heart that I can't give them all ribbons. Maybe I'll change my mind next year and give everybody some sort of ribbon. It's just so unfair, right? Okay, the stars aligned. Barbara Kempen from Appleton, Wisconsin, Swoon 16 and Swoon Mini. So my first time entering a quilt show of any type. I took the challenge and decided to enter. I mainly used fabric from my quilting stash, but did supplement with some other fabrics from Camille and Lisa. That's Camille, my Moda sister. You all know her. She's from Thimbleberries. It took me a while to figure out how to get the design, the layout, and come together, but I think it turned out beautiful. So she took 2 patterns and combined them. Isn't that wonderful? So it's a traditional design, and then she mashed them together and made it wonderful, wonderful quilt. All right, look at this beautiful quilt, right? When I pulled this off the table, when I was looking at it, it just literally took my breath away. I'm like, oh my word, look at this quilt. Look at the quilting. It is just so amazing. Here, I'll show you the back, even before I talk about it. You can kind of really see what happened here. And I also have to admit, at first I didn't even recognize it as one of the designs. This is a recreation of one of my antique quilts that we put out as a pattern. And let's see, she'll tell me where it's from because I don't remember. Oma's Reflection by Jean Fisher from Manchester, Iowa. It is from Farmhouse Gatherings book, and it was quilted by Penny, Beckenstead. Penny's Front Porch Quilting is her official name. When Lisa announced the 2024 color theme for this quilt show, I was attending a retreat at the gathering without a pattern in mind. I went next door and bought half-yard cuts of Lakeside Gatherings flannel line, hoping a pattern would eventually speak to me. A few months later, a friend of mine was attending a retreat at the gathering and sent me a photo of Lisa's Reflection quilt hanging at the retreat. Seeing that, I knew it was the perfect pattern. I have named my version Oma's Reflection because in 2024 I became a grandmother for the first time. This quilt will go to my first grandson, Leland. It is spectacular, Jean. I'm so glad you got a judge's choice, and that, like I said, is one of the top ribbons that we give out here. And I can't say much about this quilt, and that's why I hung it right next to my sewing desk so I could just love on it every time I came in here. And I want you to know that my grandson Jace, he has wonderful taste in quilts too. He's like, Mimi, I want to vote for that one. Even though the voting was already over, I'm like, okay, you can vote for that one. But he loved this quilt as well, Jean, so I just wanted you to know that. Okay. Oh, way up high. Yes, we have one way up high. This is number 49. It is made by Dana Dorflin. Let me see, make sure I got her name right because I don't know how that goes. All right, Dorfler from O'Fallon, Illinois. She was just here for Naughty and Nice, so we got to hang out and do some fun stuff. I discovered this pattern shortly after Lisa promoted Lakeside Gatherings and knew it was a perfect match. I bought the fabrics while at the gathering in 2023, but didn't get started till August of 24. I hope to finish the top at September retreat, but after stitching, flipping, and trimming the wrong corners of 48 blocks, I almost gave up. Yep, it happens. It happens to all of us. I figured out how to correct my mistake with the leftover fabric and began ripping and restitching. After all the rework, I wasn't too concerned about perfection during assembly, but I am happy with the result. Dana, you won a 3rd place. It is beautiful, beautiful pattern. There's something unique about it. We've never seen this pattern, and it is called Nordic Noel. So, and it didn't say where she found it, but just Google that. But it's great 2-color quilt pattern there. And all it is 2 flannel fabrics. But I just love that quilt as well. So well done. All right, look at this quilt, right? It's beautiful, right? But I want Kaylee to come up real close. When I hung this quilt, I couldn't stop staring at the quilting. Got this little crystal in the middle of the block. It's kind of a very simple quilt. If you look at it, it's, you know, I'm not saying very simple, but this quilting just made this shine. This is Cindy's Castora from Odessa, Florida, and she was just here for Naughty and Nice, so she got to hang out with her quilt. And what I mean by I couldn't stop thinking about it is we laid everything out, we gave all the ribbons, and I couldn't stop thinking about the quilting on this quilt. So Lori, who is one of my quilting friends, and she made all the quilting toppers here for us, or the ribbon toppers, not quilt toppers, little quilts as toppers for our ribbons. So we quickly made a new ribbon for her, and we gave it as a long arm quilting award. So this one is quilted by Lisa Arndt. So hopefully Cindy can share that ribbon with her for her awesome efforts on this quilt. I've always been fond of 2-color quilts, and when I was using Shabby Fabrics web perusing is all right, it's per and then using. That was us, probably on us. This quilt caught my eye. I am still working full time, so I tend to buy more quilt kits than I can accomplish, but I hold on to them when I can soon retire. I have lots to sew. When my friend Tina said, let's enter the Blue and White Quilt Show, this kit immediately came to mind. Well, I'm so happy you did, Cindy, because like I said, we couldn't stop thinking about this quilt, and it was super amazing. All right, next up, Blue Little Roses by Sue Dresky from Valders, Wisconsin. And it is Little Roses and Mental Block are the pattern. And it was quilted by Sherry Sweeney. While shop hopping around Wisconsin, I found this pattern at Blue Bar Quilts and started my hunt for the perfect fabric. Fabric was collected at Primitive Gatherings, Barn Door Quilts, Pine Tree Quilts, and the quilt shop of Two Rivers. After seeing the top together, the middle squares called out for something extra. I have always wanted to incorporate wool applique into a quilt, and wonderful wool selection and Little Roses pattern at Primitive Gatherings was the added punch that was needed. I would have been easier to applique the Little Roses before assembling the quilt top, but oh my gosh, look at this simple quilt. Look what happened here. All right, this was one of those other quilts that I could not stop thinking about after all the ribbons were up. And I don't know why this just spoke to me, but I think I love how simple it was. I think I loved how the idea of what this did. It looks very Japanese-ish or something like that. So look what we gave it. We gave it a Lisa's Choice, another, like I said, impromptu ribbon there that we had to give out. So thank you, Sue, for this wonderful addition to our quilt show. It really, really, really just, like I said, it was just a joy to just see and to see what you came up with. And I love the story even behind it after I read it, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. All right, look at this nice, beautiful little display here with all these beautiful blue and white quilts here. There's a little remnant from Naughty and Nice. These are two of the pillows that we did at Naughty and Nice. So they probably really don't belong here right now. They were only here for the week that we were here. They were not here all the time, but they're here now, so I'm not going to pull them off. All right, let's start way up high with 59. And this quilt, man, another one that I wanted just to give a ribbon to, right? This beautiful blue and white schoolhouse blocks. I think they're called schoolhouse. Patchwork Cottage. Karen English Rantis from Lake Zurich, Illinois. The pattern is called Patchwork Cottage, and it was quilted by Dawn Larson. This quilt, Patchwork Cottage, combines my love of house quilts and the colors blue and white. Up until recently, I'd never made any blue and white house quilts. I wanted to use the fabric from Lisa's line called Starlight Gatherings. Patchwork Cottage represents my humble effort to incorporate the house quilt theme and my favorite colors with which to quilt and present them in the blue and white quilt show. Beautiful quilt, Karen. We loved it. We gave it this beautiful spot to hang here for the short time that it's at the show, but we absolutely love it. Number 79, or 76, excuse me. Stellar Nursery. So this is two quilts that we have two of. So Stellar Nursery was one of the first ones we talked about up front, but this is a second quilt of the same name, and it is from Starlight Gatherings. I saw a sample of this quilt in a Wisconsin shop. I love blue and white and the antique feel of this pattern. Yes, because guess what? It is from an antique quilt that we have remade. I knew I had to make it. Thanks, Lisa, for a beautiful design. Well, let's thank the person 150 years ago that came up with that. All right, so then we have number 39.
You want to move the pillow?
What's that?
Can you move that pillow?
I will move that pillow. Let's get a better shot of that one. All right, here we go. 39, Nathan's Blue Quilt. Barbara Tuman from St. Charles, Illinois. Pattern is the name of the quilt and quilted by Barb herself. I made Nathan's Blue Quilt because I love the crisp blue colors with white. After I made the quilt and had it on a chair, a good friend also named Barb was at my house. She loved the quilt. She had recently lost her husband of over 50 years. I boxed up the quilt and gave it to her. She uses it all the time. Her great-grandkids love to have picnics on it in the family room. So glad I could share the quilt with a good friend. Wow, Barbara, she will totally treasure this quilt, and so nice of you to give it to her. Don't you love it when somebody says, hey, I really love that, and then you're just like, here, it's yours. Sometimes a quilt just needs a home. And I used to not gift my quilts, but now I just love giving them away. I used to want to hang on to every quilt I ever made just because, I wanted to see all those quilts. But now, after you quilt for a long time, you have way too many quilts, so it's best just to give them away. Huckleberry Summer 2. Jackie Goblinski from Farmers Branch, Texas, designed by me many years ago to honor my mom's delicious huckleberry pie. She pickled huckleberries, canned and froze for pies later. Huckleberries are a version of wild blueberries grown in Michigan and other northern states. Look at how beautiful this is. Yeah. Peaky and Spike. Lovely, lovely, lots of blues and whites. Love it, love it. All right, I'm gonna go this way. 62. November by Melissa Murgua, Santa Clarita, California. A Year in Solids book, and it's called November. Jessica Dayton's original pattern, all for solids. I decided to use Scrappy Blues from Starlight Gatherings for the Flying Geese after I decided to invert the colors from the original pattern. All right, so she just talks a little bit more about that, but look at how beautiful that turned out for her. And I just love it when we can display them in different manners to make it so fun to see how you can maybe do that in your own home with antique ladders. It just makes it fun. All right, up over there, number 5. Hello, Mr. Nick. All right, number 5 is second place winner, Carolina Lilies in Blue from Linda Kramer from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, quilted by Linda as well. Let me just say it's spectacular quilted. I don't know if Kaylee's going to be able to catch that from this far away, but there's something about this quilt done in blue and white that makes it so amazing. It just stops you in your tracks. And Linda says, while searching for inspiration for a quilt design to enter in the blue and white quilt show, I came across a photo of an antique quilt of Carolina Lilies on Pinterest. I was immediately sold. I am a blue and white fan and love 2-color quilts. Although only a portion of this quilt was visible in the photo, it was badly damaged. I searched Carolina Lily blocks, drafted some stems and leaves for the blocks, and finally drafted the swag borders. Piecing and applique took me the summer of 2024, quilted on my long arm. Wow, it is so beautiful. Linda, thank you for sharing this beautiful quilt, and congratulations on your second place. Because you know, getting a ribbon in this quilt show is tough. There are so many awesome quilts. All right, number 104, all right, is, I got a little story about this quilt, but I'll read the descriptions first because I don't think there's much in the description, because these 2 quilts barely made the quilt show. All right, here we go. Strobel 104 by Darcy Strobel from Butamore, Wisconsin. And the pattern is called Strobel, and it is from the Starlight Gatherings book, and it is quilted by Darcy herself. I had to make this quilt because Lisa Bongean named it after me. The fabric is from Starlight Gatherings fabric line. It is perfect for life on the lake. All right, so yes, I named this after my dear friend Darcy, this pattern in the book, so she had to make it, and it's blue and white, so I'm like, hey, did you finish that blue and white quilt yet? And she's like, well, it's kind of on the long arm, and I'm like, well, it's kind of like 2 days before the show, so I'll come over and I'll do my binding on Scandinavian Christmas while you finish quilting it. So like, I basically like held her hostage until she finished quilting it. But it's in the show, right? All right, so then, Darcy's daughter-in-law, Lori Strobel, made the quilt in scrappy colors, blue, not scrappy fabrics, blue and white scrappy. So it is called Strobel. It is from the Starlight Gatherings book. I had so much fun quilting with my mother-in-law, Darcy Strobel, who is a big fan of primitive gatherings, especially their quilt designs, and also attends their retreats. We get together often to stitch and machine quilt. So when I saw Darcy make this, I had to do a scrappy version of it. So Lori had hers all quilted, all bound, and it was ready to go for me that day. So we picked it up, and I'm so happy to have these 2 quilts in this show. All right, so we're going to back up a little bit over here and come to this cute little quilt right here, front and center behind our couch. This is number 36. 36 is from Tina Rossenberger, and it's called Snowman Collector. This quilt was made using machine embroidery and traditional piecing. Machine embroidery? I didn't know that. Wow, no wonder it's so perfect. Oh, wow. And traditional piecing. I pre-quilted the blocks before stitching the embroidery designs. After finishing the quilt top, my long arm quilter, Lisa Arndt, put the finishing quilted touches on it. The embroidery design is by the Stitch Connection. Super cute. Everybody's always after me, hey Lisa, digitize your designs. Now I know why. Because look what you can do. The machine does it all for you. And no wonder that was so cool. It was all done by machine. That is fascinating, Tina. So you know I didn't sit here and read every one of these descriptions. Okay, so one of the fun things about the quilt show is we have this big open space to hang from the ceiling. And when we first get the quilts all here in the gathering, we lay them all out We lay out all the big quilts and then all the smaller quilts and then the mini quilts. We have 3 piles. So then I kind of look through the piles and I kind of find the stunners, you know, the ones that take my breath away when I'm peeling them back. And then I set those aside. And then I try to pair them up to hang with the one similar size. All right, so that's how I determine which ones get hung high, because I want this just to be like, you know, take your breath away when you see it. So that's how this happens. All right, so look at this beautiful quilt here, number 68, beautiful, beautiful, scrappy, called Cozy in Blue by Joanne Lang from Galena, Ohio. It is called Heritage Blossoms. It is quilted by Joanne herself. I've been quilting sewing since my home economics class in junior high with Mrs. Glowacki in 1964. I still know my home ec teacher too. I loved it so much that my dad bought me a Singer sewing machine. 60 years later, I am still making quilts, decor for friends, family, and charity. This quilt is a result of my love for blue and white, for hanging over our loft railing and snuggling. I chose Kim Deal's Heritage Blossom pattern for the 9 center blocks of my quilt. Then I designed the sashing and borders to correlate with the center blocks. My quilt is machine pieced on and quilted with my hand-drawn designs on my Bernina 790 Plus. Wow. Okay, this again, another one that, you know, if I had more ribbons, this one definitely would have gotten one too. Okay, now look at this beauty.
Go front.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. We'll go right here.
All right. All right. Again, front and center, way up high. Number 65 is our best of show. Again, when you see that, how can you not love it, right? So 65, called Blue Heaven by Kathy Ninehouse from Oak Harbor, Washington. It is quilted by Mindy Montier of Wild Phil Quilting. Blue Heaven is the last design by the late Sue Garman that the late Sue Garman published about 2017. This year's Blue and White Quilt Show was my opportunity to go for it, as I've been smitten with this pattern since I first looked at it. Almost quit it more than once, though, due to all those 1-inch strip sets to complete that border. Wow. Glad I persevered. Glad I persevered through. As a result, is a beautiful quilt. It was my only project I finished this year while snowbirding in Arizona. Well, we know why it's the only one, Kathy, and hopefully that best of show will make it all worthwhile of only doing one quilt while you were in Arizona. Okay, so we're just going to kind of go through and then we're going to come back and do the back side. All right, number 9 is a beautiful quilt. It got a 2nd place ribbon. Miss is Lincoln Stars by Kathy Decker, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. You know Miss Kathy. You see her a lot on our YouTube. Carol Hopkins presented this pattern in a class many years ago. It was stitched with a brown print border. I enjoyed making it in the class and wanted to recreate it in blue and white. It looks very different in this colorway. The quilt includes indigo gatherings, starlight gatherings, and snowman gatherings fabrics. But look at how wonderful this is executed and quilted by Kathy herself. And it is just spectacular. This category of designs, when the commercial designs, had so many quilts in it. It had about 80% of the quilts in it. So I want to show you, so this one got a 2nd, and then this quilt got a 2nd as well. So I picked 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds in this category. But when you see Kathy's quilt and you see Sue's quilt here that I'm going to talk about next, they were so similar that I had to give them the same ribbon. So Forever Blue, Sue Hiddle from Appleton, Wisconsin. I saw this quilt in a 2020 American Patchwork and Quilting magazine at the same time Lisa's fabric line Indigo Gatherings came out. I love blue and cream quilt, so I collected the fabrics to make the quilt. I finally decided to make the quilt for this event. Beautiful Sue, again, all quilted by Sue herself. Piecing is perfect. Just wonderful to have here at the show. All right, next up, quilt number 27, one of the big major or big award here. This is the first place, called Twilight Stars from Ann Helbling from Kindred, North Dakota. Twilight Stars began as a quilt along with Primitive Gatherings. This was a fun quilt to piece. I love that all the blocks are different, and the Clem quilted them all different as well. So the quilter is Clem Buzik, and she did a fabulous job quilting these. And like Anne said, she quilted all the blocks differently as well too. So look what you can do with your Twilight Stars blocks. If you haven't finished yet, or you haven't even thought about how you're going to put them together. I love her unique layout. And you had to think ahead, because she's got some blocks with the light background and some blocks with the navy background. So she switched the colors in there. So as she was making her star blocks, I'm thinking she already had this in mind, because she pulled it off so perfectly. All right, we're going to go to the right here, number 29. This quilt, Oh Say Can You Sew Too, I almost didn't recognize it, but this was our quilt along that we did as well. And I've been wanting to do a blue and white quilt for my bed. I decided to participate in the mystery Oh Say Can You Sew Too, and loved it. I used a majority of blue and cream scraps and fabric from my stash. And Amelia Haynes, you did a fabulous job on your quilt. We love it. It's so beautiful hanging here at the gathering. Great job. And I know Amelia's she's a younger girl hanging out with us old timers. All right, next up, 25, called Tahoe by Franchelle Hornsey from Russellville, Arizona. It is a laundry basket quilt design, and Franchelle quilted it herself. I love blue and white. Tahoe makes me feel like I'm on a snow-covered mountain. This quilt stretched my skills. I wasn't sure I would be able to finish it, but step by step it came together. It's not perfect, but I love it. Hey, we don't care about perfect, we care about done, and we can't tell that this is not perfect. It's amazing. It is a stop you in your tracks quilt design for sure, and Franchelle, you pulled it off excellent. All right, up in the middle here, number 40. Again, another one of those quilts that definitely deserved a ribbon. Doris is a Star by Diane Schumann from Fredonia, Wisconsin. The pattern is Stars Aligned. I believe it's in our Starlight Gatherings book. This quilt is called Stars Aligned. I had the pattern and kit for a while and thought it would be perfect for this show. I think so too. But I must admit, I just about lost my mind making sure all those stars aligned. It was a challenging project for me. I'd like to dedicate my quilt to my sister-in-law Doris. Her favorite color was blue, but most importantly, she was a shining star to all who knew her. That is super awesome, Diane. Like I said, I love it when we honor those who touch our hearts. So thank you for submitting your quilt to our show. All right, now we are going to go and we are going to see what's on the back side here of this quilt. Number 31 is from Janice Hardy from Melbourne, North Carolina. Memories of Myrtle Beach in February is the name. The pattern is called Let Me Surprise You Mystery. Mystery quilt designed by Charlotte Angadi and presented at a workshop at the first Two Friends and a Quilt retreat in Myrtle Beach. My friend Annette Rogers and I flew out to New York at the beginning of what was to become a major snowstorm. The duration of the storm caused numerous flight cancellation affecting our return trip home, which left us stranded in Myrtle Beach for an extra 2 days. Oh, I feel so bad. Fortunately, Annette had a cousin nearby, so we had a lovely place to stay. Quilt started in 2015, finished in 2022. Okay, 78. This quilt London Gardens by Mary Fleming from Rochester, Minnesota. The pattern, Hampton Court Blooms, quilted by Sue Bittinger. While living in London, In 2019 through 2022, I collected Liberty fabric. When the pandemic hit, I decided it was a good time to start on this quilt. Little did I know, with the transport limitations and postal delays, it would be difficult to find enough blue and white fabric, so I used what I had. I love the London parks, flowers, and blue and white crockery, so I think this is an appropriate memory. I also watched Lisa's Primitive Gathering YouTube videos during lockdown, which reminded me of home, hearing Lisa's Midwest humor, charm, and accent. Yeah, I do talk funny, I know. It's okay. It is me, I can't change it. All right, look at this, this is fun. 56, Country Living, Joanne Huddock from Tucanac, Pennsylvania. The pattern is called Country Living. Joanne also quilted the quilt. I had a huge tower of laundry basket quilt fabrics, and I couldn't wait to use them in a quilt. I shared half the fabrics with a friend, and we sewed them at retreat. Lovely pattern. Okay, 51. Lovely traditional design here. Blue and White Starlight from Betsy Davis from Alaska. The pattern is called Red, White, and Blue, and it is quilted by Betsy Cabs McGuire from Eagle, Colorado. This quilt was made by two ladies who have been friends for over 30 years. Betsy McGuire purchased the Starlight Gatherings fabric while in Wisconsin visiting family. At the same time, she came across the Red, White, and Blue pattern by J.J. Stitches. Betsy bundled up the fabric and pattern and shipped it all to Alaska, where Betsy Davis worked on her magic and created it. Betsy then sent it back to Betsy in Colorado to long arm and bind. We are both happy with the outcome. Yes, Betsy, Betsy, I love it. Can't make that stuff up, people. Lovely, lovely. Look at this. It looks like an antique. Right after my own heart here. Who doesn't love basic 2-color quilt? Grape Baskets by Yvonne Hollenbeck from Clearfield, South Dakota. It's a traditional pattern called Grape Basket, and Yvonne quilted it herself. After loving my great-grandma's basket quilt for years, I wanted to make a navy and white one. I was isolated on a remote cattle ranch during the worst winter of record, so I spent the long days and nights accomplishing this goal. Using what I had in my stash due to be not able to buy fabric, I was mistakenly used PFD, prepared for dyeing fabric, for the white. So when completed, I washed the quilt only to have it accept the bleeding from the navy. I learned a big lesson. So yes, this fabric is what people like Debbie Maddie used to do her indigo dyeing. It's called prepared for dyeing. So it's used to hand dye. So what happened was, when she washed it, that white fabric took on some of the loose dye from the navy, but it looks like it's light gray now. When I look at it from a distance here, it's beautiful. I think this quilt, this quilt is hand quilted too. All right, so Yvonne quilted it by hand. It looks so old, and that's what we love about it. And I think, Yvonne, that quilt, that transfer of dye made it add to that illusion of it being being antique as well, and being old. So I don't think it's a bad thing what happened to it. I think it's great. So sometimes those fun surprises that make your heart go, oh, I think it's fine. I think it's great. And I love that it's that color, and I wouldn't have declined it because it still looks white or shade of cream, It's just a gray hue to it, that's all. Okay, then we have number 74 over here. '74, look at that. Flower Wreaths by Jane Becker from Sparta, Michigan. Can you believe it took me 10 years to hand embroider this quilt? I lost interest and put it away for a while and then hauled it out again. Glad I stuck with it, as the blue and white turned out beautiful. Yes, and look at how wonderful it is. And sometimes that's what happens. We put things away. And my favorite saying, and you all hear me say this, is our fabric doesn't spoil, all right? It'll be there when you're ready to pick it back up and to finish the project. So good job. I love the quilt, and I love how you quilted it, not over it. You kind of made those wreaths kind of puff out. So good job. And it was quilted by Valerie Reynolds. Now I just want to make sure. Oh yeah, over here. All right, so blue ribbon. This one is number 98. Winter Flowers by Sherry Sweeney. I found a photo of a similar quilt on Pinterest. There was no pattern for the original, so I figured out what I needed for these blocks and borders and used EQ to generate paper piece templates for the feathered star. How beautiful, Sherry. Thank you for this combination of piecing and applique. Again, you got a first place ribbon. Spectacular. All right, so now we are going to proceed to go down the hallway, and we'll be right back. Here we are going down the hallway of our sleeping quarters here at the gathering, and let me tell you, there's some wild blues going on down here, so this hallway is perfect for all the things going on here. So let's start with the wall of minis. Number 17, we'll start with that one. '17 is called Moonlight. It's from Sherry Smith from Greenwood, Wisconsin. I took a collage class that Laura Heine taught and I fell in love with the technique. When I saw a photo of something like this quilt, I knew I had to try to make it. I drew the tree on paper and transferred it to the steam seam and went from there. At the quilt show, I may put a red after the quilt show, I may put a red cardinal in that tree for a pop of color. I think that's a good idea there, Sherry, but it is beautifully done, and we love the creativity of what you did with what you learned from Laura. And then quilt number 99 has a second place ribbon in the miniature category. Joanne McPherson from Leo, Indiana, quilted by Sybil Margrill, the Quilted Anchor. Oh, I like that name. I designed this quilt after reading the autobiography of Grace Snyder, an early pioneer of Nebraska and a quilter. I was inspired by her 1943 quilt, Flower Basket Petite Point, which was made up of thousands of tiny half-square triangles, pieced as tiny blocks of 78 pieces. Look at that. Isn't that a great snowflake? I love her borders on it with the curves on it. And this was just spectacular. So we loved your entry, Joanne, and congratulations on your second place. Number 24 is Blue Stars by Karen Lamers from Little Chute, Wisconsin. The Magic of Christmas 17 and 23. So those were blocks that I think we made for that quilt along. This is my first time sewing with triangle papers. I wanted to experiment with small pieces and design my own layout. Good job, Karen, and thank you for sending us your little quilt. We'll go to number 10 next. This one is an original design. Blue Tile Quilt from Julie Feit from Ripon, Wisconsin. I designed this quilt a few years ago after seeing a blue tile tray at an antique store. I love the design on the tiles. When Lisa's new line of Snowman Gatherings came into the store, I thought it would be perfect. Time to do the math, figure out the block size, and put my design thoughts into a finished quilt. Very cool, Julie. Thanks for this wonderful quilt. Then we're going to go to number 7, Gathering in Blue. This is our first place winner in our mini quilts quilted by Dee Johnson and made by Dee from Mankato, Minnesota. I love working with small pieces and I love crosses, so this quilt really spoke to me. As you can see, I love patriotic fabrics, particularly Primitive Gatherings fabrics. I also use Lisa's information on starching and fabrics to ease in the handling and accuracy of sewing. Love the fussy cut flags in the center of the corner blocks. Finished August of 2024. Congratulations, Dee. Beautiful, beautiful quilt. We loved it. 88 is Starlight Dallas. Peggy Usted from Bearsfoot, South Dakota, and is quilted by Peggy as well. I've always loved Dala horses and their folk art look. I had a cookie cutter in the shape of a Dala horse to trace onto wool. I hope that's how you say Dala. Is it Dala or Dala? After embroidering patterns on the horses, finding fabrics that would complement the horses was a challenge. Then I realized I had a fat quarter bundle of Starlight Gatherings in my stash and knew this would work perfectly. I hand-stitched the rest, merging folk art with modern. I designed this without knowing what it would look like. I'm a beginner, having done only a few quilts. Again, Peg, thank you for entering your quilt. It was super fun, very unique. We loved it. Number 13. Is from Edith Hubbard from St. Charles, Illinois. Fierce Ladies at Midnight. Fierce Ladies is a depiction of painted lady Victorian houses in San Francisco. Piecing them in blue and white colorway gave them the appearance of midnight. I couldn't leave that half-finished house half-finished, so I extended some of them over into the chunky binding. That's pretty clever. We love that as well. Always unique. Number 2 is one of our minis, Starlight Star Mini in Blue. This was our first of our mini series that we put together here at Primitive Gatherings. So if you're intimidated by minis, join us for one of our mini quilts that we put out every month. This was the first one we did, and Kathy's version of it in blue and white is spectacular. I participated in Lisa's Twilight Garden quilt along, or Twilight Stars quilt along, and used red and white fabrics to make the 100 blocks. When Starlight Star Mini first yearly month-long series by Lisa came along, I made my version in blue and white. I quilted a small orange peel to add circular movement to the angles. I have found I enjoy making minis. We enjoy seeing them. Number 6 is A Dozen Lysanthius by Teresa Bovee in Fitchburg, Wisconsin. I had 1 yard of blue fabric and some white scraps in my stash. The challenge was, what could I do with that pile and turn it into a blue and white quilt? I wanted the blue to be the background since I had more blue than white. I looked at the quilt blocks for a few months and decided that this rose block, I started making blocks in July, played around with the setting layout, then off to the long armor who decided to custom quilt it to set off the white roses. Thank you, Teresa, for your entry. It is, again, lovely, lovely to see the mini quilts. And then number 8. Number 8. Let's talk about number 8. Wow. Okay. Again, Blue Pineapple. Kathy Blockett from Mankato, Minnesota. I love miniature quilts and I love small blocks. This miniature mini is such a fun pattern to play with. By changing up the color combinations and placement, you can really get some great variations and even a secondary pattern. Yes. So Kathy, your quilt is spectacular. We all know that. All right, but guess what? Kathy entered one of these last year and she got a ribbon. So Kathy, I love your quilt very much, but I want to see something else. You did one of these last year. So I'm challenging you to do something a little bit different if you're going to enter next year. All right? So one of those things of being a judge is like sometimes I'm like, did the same person who made that beautiful mini last year make this one? And she did. All right, so we loved it. Everybody loved it. It's great. I want to give it a ribbon, but I'm going to challenge you to do something different next year. I know I'm picking on you. I don't really mean to, but hey, sometimes you got to be pushed a little bit. But again, spectacular quilt. If it goes missing, Lisa Bongean's house on her wall. That's where you'll find it. All right. Aloha, number 55. Indigo Sunrise, Robin Nelson is the maker and the quilter. Indigo Sunrise was my entry to Vicky's Fabrics Kauai Hawaii Annual Mini Quilt Challenge. And she just goes on to talk more about all what she did. And it's really fun to show this again in the blue and white quilt show. We loved it. It's so unique. Thank you for submitting that here. So number 26 is our third place winter. I'm looking at that tree. Winter. Yeah. It just screams winter. Number 26 is very unique and different. And sometimes you got to reward unique and different. So 26 is from Debbie Weiss. It is called Blue Christmas. My quilt was made this year for the 2024 Azalea Quilt City Quilt Challenge, with the theme being a song and a color in the title. I choose a song, Blue Christmas, and the photo was inspiration for my original design. I got a late start, and so it was completed only in 2 weeks. This quilt was my first in many ways. My first original design, the first quilt using paper-backed fusible adhesive, my first with such extensive beading, and my first quilt to send off to an out-of-state competition. Well, Debbie, thanks for being so brave, and we are awarding you a 3rd place ribbon on your unique and creative quilt. Okay, now we're going to go to this side. Look at this fun blues over here. I love this color. Totally blue and white, right? 57, Lady of the Lake. Regina Stanton from Sweet Valley, Pennsylvania is Lady of the Lake by Missouri Star Quilt Company. Debbie Holgraby quilted it. I purchased this quilt kit from Missouri Star Quilt Company many years ago. I started it, put it aside, then started working on it again years later. I laughed when I realized the difference in my sewing skills from the first block to the last. Don't look too closely. Haha. We can't tell, Debbie. It's amazing. Thank you for submitting it. Or Regina. Debbie's the quilter, sorry. All right, 83 is a fabulous quilt. We love those half square triangles. Feathered Star, Vicki Byers, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Feather Star and Figs. I made this quilt in 2024 and did free motion quilting myself. I have nicknamed this, oh well, that's just life, because of the assorted problems and frustrations it gave me. It will always remind me that everything goes as planned, but it's still okay. I think it's very okay. So she did her own quilting. Great job, Vicki. So glad you entered it in our quilt show. All right, number 45 is over here on the right. It's colder in this hallway than the rest. Midsummer Star by Laura Krasinski from Menominee Falls. Adventure Awaits is the pattern name, and it was quilted by Diane Minkley. I was going through some older magazines and saw this quilt. I love the look of the larger blocks and saw how they make a secondary pattern. Modern Patchwork Magazine, March, April 2018. Thank you, Laura, for this beautiful quilt. Number 82. Feathered Star. Robin Sanders from Menominee Falls. Pattern, Marsha McCloskey's Feathered Star, Radiant Star. Quilted by Marge West. I've always loved the look of Feathered Star blocks. It always has looked very challenging to me. When the opportunity came up to take a class at Patchworks to make a Feathered Star quilt, I decided to jump in. Indeed, it was very challenging, but also satisfying when it was finished. I had done it. Yes, you have, and it's spectacular, Robin. Number 86, I love it when they're almost on the same page. Look at this fun quilt. Water by Lynn Bricker, Appleton, Wisconsin. Cool People Quilt for Water is the name of the pattern, and quilted by Sue Hiddle. My quilt features the fabric line by Ruby Star Society. The pattern was created by Cool People Sew. A portion of the pattern proceeds were donated to Never Thirst Water and their mission to bring clean water and living to the world. I enjoy learning to machine piece curves. Thank you, Lynn. Beautiful different fabrics in that quilt. Number 34, Iced Blueberries from Judith Kratz in St. Pierce, Florida. Iced Blueberries is the name of the pattern, and Judith quilted it as well. I've had this pattern for many years and always wanted to make it. When Primitive Gatherings announced its blue and white quilt show, I decided it was time. I used all the scraps from my stash and was pleased with the result. I quilted it on my domestic machine. She did good. Very lovely quilt, Judith. Number 14, again, people are so talented. So this is a quilt from Lori Landry from Menominee, Michigan. 30 different patterns were used, she says. All right, I used Moda Blockheads 5 in a 6-inch block size on the outer edge of an original design portrait of a snow queen. Her coat is recycled wool coat from a thrift store. There are a variety of special occasion fabrics: satin, taffeta, wool felt, wool lame, eyelash lame, and velvet, embellished with pearl cotton, glitter paint, and a variety of snowflakes, sequins, beads, buttons, minis, Christmas ornaments, rickrack yarn, repurposed jewelry, rhinestones, and decorative threads. How cool, right? Like I said, wish I had tons of ribbons to hand out because this one was very unique and very creative, and you can't say enough about it. All right, 52. Carol's Christmas, and Linda Comron from Winter Haven, Florida. The pattern is Monterey Medallions, and Linda quilted it herself. I'm usually not a blue person, but when I saw Lisa's fabric and this pattern, I knew that this one was to make for a very good friend, Carol, who loves blue. Collected fabric from several shops. When I had enough to get started, machine quilted on my domestic Bernina. She is 24 years old and works like a charm. Quilt will be heading to Carol K in central New York. I love how she has, funky fabrics, batiks, and, just put in the traditional fabrics right along with them. Okay, here's one of our big winners as well. Number 97 is honored with our Most Creative Award. All right, here we go. Off to the quilt show. Joanne Lazars from Keller, Texas. She quilted it. She did everything. Off to the quilt show embodies the excitement of an upcoming quilt show. It's about each quilter coming together and showcasing their favorite designs. I used my 2 sewing machines, embroidery machine, long arm to custom design and complete every aspect of this quilt. Several of the balloons were paper pieced. The vehicle was an applique. The house was a traditionally pieced block. This quilt is an absolute delight to create over several months. I really enjoyed all the aspects of putting it together. It was super fun to freehand doodle all the designs with my long arm quilting machine. All right, so yes, so much to look at, and guess what? I think this is the gathering, all right? So this is the gathering, and what's not to love? Blue and white quilt show. Congratulations, Joanne, on your Most Creative ribbon. Again, wow, okay. This is wool. Everything is stitched so beautifully on this quilt. Serendipity by Judy Goldhammer, Hartford, Wisconsin. Ohio Star Blocks in the corner says the pattern. So this is my Serendipity. The first few attempts at designing this quilt look nothing like what you see now. I took Sue Spargo's class at Primitive Gatherings in February of this year and knew I had to include some wool. I was introduced to dazzle threads and sparkle wool that I just had to incorporate into the design. Added to what was my bead hoard, and you get a winter willow at twilight, when the snow takes on the sky color and just sparkles. Again, so unique, so creative, just amazing. Congratulations, Judy. This is a spectacular quilt. And like I always say, if I had ribbons, many more would be going on these. Okay, 81. Swimming Upstream by Deb Worthman of Cozad, Nebraska. And Swimming Upstream was a quilt that we designed to go into American Patchwork and Quilting. A few years ago, I made a quilt for my brother and sister-in-law. I saved the scraps from the king-size quilt, knowing they would be put to use someday. It took some precise cutting and maybe a little cussing, but I cut everything from scraps, including the binding. The only fabric purchased was the backing. The quilt was an experiment, but I loved finishing this quilt. And to tell you the truth, Deb, this quilt that I designed for the magazine was leftovers from another quilt that I finished from this fabric line too. So isn't that cool that we can create whole quilts from extra fabric left over? I love that about our art, that we can recreate from the leftovers that it leaves behind. Tree of Life, again, another beautiful quilt. So this one is by Joanne Blank, Appleton, Wisconsin, quilted by Sue Hiddle. I never made a blue and white quilt. That needed to change. I have always loved the Tree of Life quilts. This blue and white challenge gave me the opportunity to make myself one of my own design in hand applique. Needing so many different blues, a few close friends shared their fabrics with me. That makes it even more special. Thank you. Sue Hiddle did a fantastic job of custom long arming. Thank you, Sue, Joanne says. Yes, isn't that fun when you can gather some fabrics from your friends to make it so unique, and maybe that's kind of a cool friendship idea, Joanne, that maybe you'll give somebody else, like you do a swap of change and come up with stuff like that. All right, which one to do next? Okay, they're pretty much both on the same page, so let's go here. Number 15, here to my left, Memories of a Sogun Valley Christmas. From the book Patches of Blue, quilted by Colleen Meyer from Primitive Gatherings. What an introduction to mystery quilt-alongs this was for me. We use Edita Sitar's Laundry Basket Quilts book, Patches of Blue. She led us making a variety of beautiful blocks. We learned to fit them together without a pattern to make a large quilt top. So she's got a pretty long description, but beautiful. Who doesn't love sampler quilts with all different things going on? I love the quilting on this. It doesn't take away or add too much to what's really going on here, and that's all the different blocks. Number 22, again, just 2 fabrics. And Zigzag Churn Dash by Shannon Olson from Burlington, Wisconsin. It's from A Year in Solids, called February. Excuse me. As a newly retired RN, I saw the ad for the Blue and White Quilt Show and said, why not? I pulled out a pattern from my stash, ordered fabric. I normally do not use blue, so this quilt was out of my box, but I am very pleased with the results. I will be at the show to see it hang proudly. And yes, it does, Shannon. Good job on your quilt. 47. Look at this baby. Mystic Star by Carol Mollers from Green, Iowa. I enjoyed designing and making quilts. This particular design I submitted to McCall's Quilting, and it was selected for publication in December of 21. It is called Winter Waltz in the magazine. Original name was Mystic Star. I made it with icy shades of blue and white batiks made by Island Batik. It's a foundation piece wall hanging that measures 50 by 50. It was designed with 9-patch stars, blocks set on point to create the illusion of a cluster of crystal snowflakes. It is custom quilted with 50-weight Orifil thread on my Gamel Statler with pearl and feather designs. Beautiful, beautiful quilt. So congratulations, Carol, on your 3rd place ribbon. Number 69. Norfolk Sampler by Sandra Park from Houston, Texas. The pattern is Norfolk Fleur Nor Sampler by Jenny Garman. This was a block of the month from Annie's website. Look at that tweaked blue, like it's almost purplish. So isn't there so many shades of blue out there? Good job on the sampler quilt. Very nicely done. I love the overall kind of modern Baptist fan. Was kind of unique too. 102 is another log cabin. Shades of Blue Log Cabin by Mary Ann Rogas from Burton, Texas. Quilted by Kathy Emmett. Log cabin quilt is one of my favorite quilt patterns, and I was wanting to do blue and white using batik fabric. Good job, Mary Ann. All right, look at this. Number 1. Number 1. Look at the quilting, people. Usagi, is that how you say that? Carol Rice from Springfield, Illinois, and quilted by Yvonne Carrillo. In 2008, I was asked to be a part of a professional women's group to Japan. While I was in Japan, the group spent the day in a mountain village learning to dye indigo fabric. Last year, I found Debbie Maddie's indigo dyed fabrics and decided to make a quilt, reminding me of my trip to Japan. This is so spectacular. The quilting, the bunnies, they're so fun. And I love how some of them are straight on, off to the right, off to the left, no? All to the, fun. But these are all Debbie's shibori-like fabrics that Moda creates for her. Thank you for hanging out with me and enjoying our blue and white quilt show for 2024. I look forward to next year's 2025 quilt show, which we will be announcing very shortly on what the theme will be, but think multi-scrappy, all right? So I appreciate everybody who sent a quilt in for us. We will get these shipped out in January for you. We're not going to ship them out now because we don't want to go into that holiday shipping. So thank you very much for everybody who entered and those of you who came and donated for our fundraising cause this year for tools for teachers for the Winneconne Elementary School. They are sure going to love the donations that we have given them, all because of you. So thank you from Primitive Gatherings, where every stitch tells a story.